Hello and welcome. I'm Farah Danish, a special educator, certified brain gym instructor, certified mindset coach, and a mom to a beautiful 18-year-old on the spectrum. Now, today in this video, I will be walking you through on helping your child making choices. Now, there are two types of choices. One is where you choose your item of preference, right? Or your activity of preference. And the other one is where you get to choose or where you choose to show, to demonstrate your understanding of a concept, okay, of a learning. Now, our children who have limited verbal abilities, it's not easy for them to always voice out the correct answer. So how are they going to demonstrate their understanding, their learning? By choosing the right answer. Now, why is this an important skill? And by the way, I do want to caveat to this, that to be able to learn this skill, it's really important that our children have the basic foundational learning readiness skills have to be in place. And what are they? They're, like following directions, being able to sit and remain on task, sustained attention, shared attention, imitation, regulation, because if a child is not regulated, we know this, if they're not calm, they're in fight or flight mode and they will be resisting you. So none of the other points that I mentioned is going to come through if your child is not regulated. Now, a lot of people also say, a lot of therapists say that responding to their names is also an important learning readiness skill. I don't fully agree with that, because for my child to be able to learn anything, it doesn't matter if he doesn't respond to his name. In fact, for my own son, he learned that skill, or he acquired that skill way later, like at the age of 5 or 6. But he could learn before that. He knew all his numbers. He knew how to write those numbers. He learned all his alphabets, the uppercase, lowercase. He was ahead of all his peers at the age of 3. So he started school, he started FS1 at the age of 3, but he wouldn't respond to his name. So learning to respond to your name is a skill required by school. So that's a school readiness skill. It's not necessarily a learning readiness skill. There's a distinction. And I want you to know that, okay? So I don't want you to hold yourself back with working on your child just because he hasn't mastered or he doesn't respond to his name or her name. Okay, now let's look at the dangers of what happens if your child does not learn how to choose. First of all, we know we need to have all these skills in place, learning readiness skills in place, solidified, strong enough to proceed. The assumption here is that your child is already there. If he's not there, I have an amazing resource that you can grab, and I'll put the links to that. Do go and get that, because that'll help. It's a very play-based approach on how you can work on all these really foundational skills. What are the dangers of if your child does not or cannot choose? Let's understand one thing. Our children are neurodivergent learners. They acquire information very differently to neurotypicals or your regular school-going kids would. Now, neurotypical kids learn the way we probably learned in school, right? The old-fashioned way. Our neurodivergent children have auditory differences, have several sensory differences. And so teaching them exactly the same way you teach any other neurotypical kids, in my opinion, you're not really going to get far. You're asking for more frustration and more overwhelmed for yourself. And if you, as the teacher, are overwhelmed, the chances are your child is already shutting down. So to understand that, to teach your child the input, how you provide, how you give access to academics, will look different than how it would for any other child. Accept that fact and then move forward, okay? Accept that learning will look different for my child, and there is absolutely nothing wrong with that, okay? The input is different, therefore the output will also be different. If you are providing input in the form of accommodations, modifications, prompts, you have all those strategies in place in teaching a concept to your child, but you're expecting your child to demonstrate the way other children are demonstrating their understanding of the learning, you will struggle. And not only struggle because our kids don't have a reliable way to show you that. And because they don't have a reliable way of showing you that, what are the dangers of that? Therapists or teachers, whoever is working with the child, including you have no way to measure progress. Teachers assume, you assume that learning isn't happening. And so you cap the child's abilities. You tell yourself that my child has learning difficulties because you haven't explored or tried another way of bringing that concept or that academics or those that education to them. And so your child misses out on opportunities. Your child is removed from a regular classroom and put in a space where very little learning is happening. And I think most moms who are here right now watching this already are in the thick of this. They're experiencing this, and it's frustrating them because they can see their child's potential, and they're seeing that the child is not being supported to achieve his full potential. You're seeing that because that is what's happening. You're seeing that your child is able to demonstrate some amazing analytical skills at home, problem solving skills at home. They want that jar of cookie, and they are putting things together, climbing over it to access it, to get it, but are not able to use that same intelligence across the board in other areas, in a school setting or in a learning space. And so because we're not able to help with that, but we're not able to bring the child to a position where he can show and demonstrate that same level of motivation to learn in a learning setup, we limit the child, we keep them at a much lower level than their age, and then the learning between them and their peers, the gap starts to widen. And when the gap starts to widen, we start giving age disrespectful, I don't even know if that's a word, but you know what I mean, right? We tend to be working with our 10-year-old and we're teaching them still the same numbers. They're still doing alphabets. They're still doing tracing. They're still doing sensory things around numbers and alphabets only. These same children, as they grow, because we're not just physically growing, our minds, our brains are growing. We are not able to see it, and there are many reasons for that, but it's growing. And so we've already limited our children. We're already doing the same things repeatedly again and again, because remember, the IEP goals are static now. They're doing the same thing for 4 years. They're stuck at the same point. You start seeing behavioral issues, meltdowns, this need for autonomy, power struggles increase as their age goes up, but you have kept them limited to work which is way, way below age level. And they can feel this. You see this, and it drops your confidence. And so that's why, without harping further into this, I want you to know that just a simple skill like your child being able to choose can be shaped into more advanced learning readiness skills. Not learning readiness skills, can be shaped into something more, shaped into more advanced executive functioning skills. Like, let me give you an example. For you, if I give you 3 choices and I ask you to choose one from that, the process that your brain goes through to make those choices, you have to analyze each one of them, see the pros and cons in choosing them, and then make a final decision and then stick to that decision. That's a lot of, cognitively demanding skills, right? For you to think so much to choose between the three. And a lot of times as adults, we lack that skill because we are constantly waiting for somebody else to tell us what to decide or what to do. And then we do the same thing with our neurodivergent kids who need this even more than I would imagine neurotypicals, this ability to learn how to make decisions. So just by learning something as basic as making choices, a child learns to make their own schedules. A child learns to make decisions on what is good for them, what is not good for them. They learn self-advocacy. There are so many skills that they learn, independent skills. They learn because they are able to discriminate, they're able to distinguish, they're able to see, analyze. And so let's go down into what those skills are. Okay, not what those skills are, we know what we're talking about. What are those steps? And I'm going to go really, really basic here, and I'm going to walk you through this, and you see where your child is at, and you can work your way up from there. The first one is that you start with matching objects to objects. And this is why I said imitation skills, following directions. All those skills have to be in place before you start with this, because this is where you're going to start. You're going to start first with object to object matching. You tell the child, like if you have a ball and a car, okay? Yeah, sorry, I don't have a ball and a car here, but you know what I mean. You have a ball and a car, the object, not picture, object. And you have the ball and the car, same object, not picture, object in front of the child. You tell the child to match the object with the object, okay? If there is confusion over here, you just keep one object in your hand and the child also has the one object. So we make this completely errorless and the object is in front of the child. He just has to pick up that object and give it to you or point at that object. Then we can add a distractor to it, right? We can then, with the car, have a bowl, okay? A car and a bowl. And then you can have the objects, the car and the bowl in front of you as well. And the child matches the car with the car and the bowl with the bowl. Because now they have learned to kind of discriminate here. Once they achieve mastery in the first level, you move to the second level by adding a distractor, which is also an object. Now, from the object, we move to pictures. You can ask the child to show the picture, and the child is able to point at the object that he sees, which matches the picture. And then you can take that a step up by showing two different pictures and those same two pictures with the child, and the child just has to match pictures to pictures. So remember, first we matched objects, now we are matching pictures. Again, you can take a step back and simplify this if your child is struggling by making it errorless. So you just have one picture and the child has one picture in front of him and they just have to match that one picture with the one picture. And then build on that by adding the distractor of another picture in front of the child while you're still holding one picture and you're asking for that one picture. Give me car or show me car. So your child has already mastered this, right? He already knows that the car is this car and they can now give that car. So once they have mastered that, now they can discriminate between the object which has been asked for, requested for, and the distractor. They can distinguish between the two and give you the right picture. And then you build on that, you further build on that by working on receptive and expressive identification of that object or picture. You remove the picture from your hands and you just say the word. You say car. And now the child picks up the car or is pointing at the car. And that's how you're working on receptive and expressive language. You're shaping it. You have to remember to shape. You don't stick and stay at one level of prompt all the time. We don't want our children to become prompt dependent. And if our children need that initial prompt, make sure that we're not bringing down the level of the cognitive ask over here. So just because a child is reluctant to come to the table to get work done, we keep it errorless, but we're not going to start doing ABCD with a 10-year-old to make it easy for them. And I understand that when emotions are high, and when I say emotions are high, when a child is completely dysregulated, cognitive level goes down, the cognitive ability goes down, it drops. And so when we put the errorless aspect into this, we want the child to stay engaged. We want the child to stay on task and we want learning to keep moving. So don't be afraid to make this errorless. Another way you can further build on this is from 2, move to 3. 3 choices. And when you're introducing 3 choices, make sure that the right choice is brought closer to the child so it's easy for the child to, so you're positionally prompting him or them, you're bringing that picture or that object closer to the child, and then the child just has to pick that up and give it to you. So the chances of making a mistake is less, and you're still working on a goal, you're still moving forward. I also want you to understand one thing, moms. A lot of moms want to know the right way and the right order of doing things. I personally don't believe that it should be that way. If you feel you can challenge your child, go ahead and challenge your child. But if it's frustrating your child, don't be afraid to take a step back. Don't be afraid to take a step back, increase their vocabulary. You can always introduce another object and build on that. Start where your child is at. If your child likes cars, use cars in your lessons. If your child loves anything to do with planets, because that's also quite common, work around that. Bring that into your learning space, your lessons. And if working on this skill is difficult to begin with, then I highly recommend you go and grab my resource on the basic foundational skills. It's got a planner, it's got everything on how you can make it play-based and target each one of those learning foundational skills. Hope this video was helpful for you. Do give this a shot. I would love to hear from you. I'd love to hear your feedback. Where did you struggle? What seemed easy? What seemed like terribly difficult thing to do? And I'm all here to hear it and help you out with this, okay? Talk to you soon.